Welcome to the deep dive. This isn't going to be just your average summary.
No, definitely not.
We're aiming for something more like, well, the shortcut you need to get you really deeply informed about some of the most, frankly, radical ideas ever put down on paper.
Yeah, ideas that really challenge everything.
Exactly. So we've custom-tailored this session just for you, digging into some pretty dense source material to pull out the real gems, the surprising bits.
And today, we are diving headfirst into, well, it's almost like a philosophical demolition job on reality itself, wouldn't you say?
I think that's a good way to put it.
We're focusing specifically on session 16 of the early sessions, book 1. This is from the Seth material, recorded way back on Wednesday, January 15th, 1964.
1964, wow.
Yeah. And this session, it's really where the universe stops being just stuff,
Right.
and starts being more like living ideas.
That's it. We're going to be talking about why light isn't just light, apparently. How your cat might have actually mastered Zen before you did.
Ha! Yes, the concentrating cat.
The concentrating cat. And then there's this kind of chilling concept about ego defense
Oh,
mechanisms.
it's definitely chilling, but fascinating.
And, believe it or not, a sort of technical breakdown of why UFOs, well, why they look so darn confusing when they actually show up.
Yeah, the bastard form idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our goal here is really clarity and insight, trying to help you cut through all the complexity.
Absolutely.
And just so we're crystal clear on our end, we have to state this. This deep dive is distributed completely free of charge on all the major platforms, and it's purely for educational purposes.
Okay, so the mission today, we want to move beyond maybe the introductory stuff people might know and really grapple with Seth's core cosmology here in session 16.
Right, get down to the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. We're focusing on two really revolutionary components. First, these things called mental enzymes.
Mental enzymes.
And second, something called solidified vitality.
Solidified vitality. Got it.
And together, these ideas, they don't just sort of describe the universe. They try to explain why it's so incredibly changeable, almost deceptive even.
And the most amazing part, for me anyway, about this session is where it actually kicks off. It's not some grand statement from Seth initially.
No, it comes from Joseph, the recipient.
Right. It's this key insight that apparently just bubbled up from his subconscious, and it really sets the stage for everything else. The idea that light is a mental enzyme.
Which sounds, completely bizarre from a standard physics perspective.
Totally. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's do it. Because it sounds nonsensical, but it's absolutely crucial to Seth's framework here. Light isn't just, waves or particles in this view.
It's something else.
It's defined as a force, an active, basic force involved in creation. And Seth actually validates Joseph's subconscious idea, saying, yeah, that's basically right. A mental enzyme is essentially the fundamental building block that dictates how reality gets perceived on any particular plane.
Okay, so if we try to boil that down, mental enzymes are like the tools consciousness uses to build the experience of the physical world.
That's a good way to think about it.
They're how things like sight and sound get, well, materialized, I guess, on our physical plane, so that we can actually recognize and appreciate them, as the text says.
Exactly. It's like the universe installing a specific kind of graphics card, like you said, just so we can see the specific colors and shapes of this reality.
Right. And what's really wild is this idea that they're universal, but also local. How does that work?
Well, Seth says these enzymes are fundamentally the same basically throughout the universe. The underlying principle, the force, is constant.
Okay.
But their physical appearance, how they show up for the inhabitants, that depends entirely on the properties of the local plane.
So the universe uses the same basic toolkit everywhere. But the blueprints, the way the tools are used to build the final structure, they change depending on where you are.
Precisely. Which leads to this really profound implication you mentioned earlier. If our sight is caused by a mental enzyme, and that enzyme's fundamental nature is universal,
then what we call light here is just our local version, the way that enzyme happens to express itself on Earth.
Exactly, and the source puts it very directly. Light on this plane could just as well appear as sound in another.
Wow. Okay, that throws a wrench in everything, doesn't it? Our whole understanding of universal constants, like the speed of light.
It suggests they might just be local programming, not universal absolutes.
So the speed of light, our ultimate cosmic speed limit.
Might just be the speed limit for this plane. On another plane, their speed of sound might be their absolute limit, and our light could theoretically translate into their sound. It completely reframes physics.
But hang on, our senses feel so distinct, right? Light is light, sound is sound. They don't seem interchangeable at all in our daily experience. How does Seth square that circle? Doesn't the stability of our physical world suggest these things are pretty rigid?
But that perceived rigidity, see, that's the key illusion, according to Seth. He points to synesthesia. You know, that neurological thing where people might see colors when they hear sounds or taste shapes.
Right, I've heard of that.
He uses that as evidence.
Correct.
The very fact that some humans can naturally experience sound as color or see color in sound proves that the underlying relationship is there. It shows the potential for interchangeability.
Okay, that makes a kind of intuitive sense. If the mental enzyme for sound and the one for light were totally separate, completely walled off things.
Synesthesia shouldn't be possible.
Right. So the fact that it can happen, even if it's rare, suggests that the rule Seth mentions, light would never be heard, for example, sound would never be seen, isn't an absolute law of the universe. It's more like a very strong habit.
A very strong habit of this particular plane, yes.
It's the aha moment then. For anyone, steeped in the scientific view that the laws of nature are fixed, written in stone.
Seth is saying, no, that inflexibility we experience, it's just a view caused by the difficulty of getting any perspective about the particular plane which you happen to inhabit. We're basically standing too close to the painting to see the whole picture.
Speaking of perspective, the session notes mention something interesting right at the start. An observation about Jane, the medium, during the trance.
Yes, about her eyes.
Right. That her eyes appeared darker and more luminous. And the recorder, Rob, realized he'd seen that same look in their cat, Willie.
Which leads to this wonderful, slightly humorous detour about focus. Seth explains this intense look isn't just random, it's a sign of exercising the inner senses.
Inner senses.
Yeah.
Opposed to our usual 5 outer senses.
Exactly. The conscious mind is being directed inward rather than outward. The medium is actively tuning out the physical world to receive the information.
Okay. And then comes the cat comparison. Yeah. Willie, the cat, focuses just as intensely. But Seth makes the point that Willie has no strong ego.
And that's the kicker, isn't it? It's humorous, but it's also deeply insightful. It suggests that this ability to tune in, to shift perception inward, isn't actually dependent on having a powerful, analytical, controlling ego trying to force it.
So the cat is just doing it, naturally.
It seems so. Willie is exercising his inner senses maybe because his nature is just less cluttered with self-doubt, complex identity issues, all the stuff our egos carry around. He's the sort of low-ego master of focus.
Achieving this deep state that lets the inner self operate more freely. It shows that maybe profound connection doesn't always require intense conscious effort or intellectual wrestling.
Right. The cat's probably more worried about the bird outside the window than, the existential nature of reality.
Probably true. Okay, so we have the tools, these mental enzymes. Now, what about the material they shape? That brings us to the second big concept. Solidified vitality.
Yes, this is presented as the core stuff, the raw substance of all existence.
Not just matter, though.
No, definitely not inert matter. Seth calls it the living stuff of the universe. It's inherently energetic, alive. And to help visualize it, he refers back to some earlier analogies he'd given them about the structure of the universe.
The ones about wires and mazes. I remember reading about those.
Exactly. And he clarifies here that these wires aren't just metaphors. They are physically composed of this solidified vitality. They act as the boundaries between planes, dividing existence up into these incredibly complex labyrinthian ways, like the inside of a honeycomb.
So there's this hidden structure, almost geometric, made of living energy that we just can't see with our normal senses.
That seems to be the idea. But the crucial point about this solidified vitality is its ability to change shape. It doesn't have a fixed form of its own.
It just adapts.
Instantly. The moment this living material enters the sphere of influence of a different plane, it immediately takes on the required camouflage dictated by that plane's specific mental enzymes.
Okay, that's the ultimate chameleon idea you mentioned. Seth says the wires grow thick or thin or change color completely, like some chameleon-like animal constantly camouflaging its true appearance.
And here's the really mind-bending part. We, the inhabitants of this plane, we only ever see the camouflage.
We don't see the underlying vitality at all.
No. We accept this temporary, locally programmed appearance, things like gravity, the solidity of this table, the speed of light. We accept them as a definite rule of nature.
But it's just the local costume.
It's a slightly terrifying thought, isn't it? If everything we experience, everything physics studies, is just the camouflage, then science isn't studying ultimate reality, it's studying the rules of the mask, believing it's the face.
Okay, but wait. I can see someone listening thinking, hang on, if it's just camouflage, why is it so incredibly reliable? If I drop my pen, it will fall every single time. Gravity seems pretty absolute right here, right now. How can Seth say these are just temporary rules?
That's a perfectly valid objection, and Seth addresses it directly. The reliability is absolute, but only within the boundary of this plane. Think of it like a really complex computer operating system.
Right.
The laws of physics, as we know them, are the programming for this specific OS. They worked perfectly, predictably within this system. But if you try to run software designed for a completely different operating system,
It crashes or just doesn't work.
exactly. The laws of cause and effect, as we experience them, aren't universal truths. They are simply the rules of this particular playground.
Which leads to that great, slightly tongue-in-cheek warning he gives them right after discussing how dependent we are on these apparent laws.
Yes, if you'll excuse the pun, please stay in your own backyard.
Huh. Don't assume that just because your backyard operates according to certain rules, the house next door or the street down the block follows the same ones. The rules change the moment you step outside the camouflage's influence.
So let's try to tie it together then. Solidified vitality is the raw material, the hardware, maybe,
The living stuff.
the living stuff. And mental enzymes are the active tools, the software, that shape and transform that vitality for perception within a specific plane.
They're how the underlying material gets patterned to create the unique basis for each reality, making it seem consistent and dependable.
But only temporarily and only locally.
Okay, wow. So shifting gears a bit now, from the nature of matter to the nature of the self. The session also digs into identity, prompted by some concerns Rob had.
Right. Concerns about the personality's integrity, particularly under extreme pressure like suggestion or what we might call brainwashing.
This seems like a really important point, moving from the vast cosmic stuff to something deeply personal.
Absolutely. And it's where Seth offers a lot of reassurance alongside the high-level philosophy. Because if you believe your current human personality is just a thing of this time only, something destroyed by death,
Then the idea that it could be broken or wiped out by trauma or suggestion is, well, it's terrifying. It's absolute tragedy.
it's exactly. So Seth immediately zooms out to the bigger picture, the entity.
The entity being the core self, the whole self.
The basic self, the enduring core identity that exists across lifetimes. And Seth is completely unambiguous here. This basic self, the entity, cannot be destroyed in any particular Earth life.
So our current personality, the US we know now, is just one expression,
Right.
one facet of that larger identity.
One manifestation of one fragment, yes. And to explain how a single personality, one fragment, could endure something like brainwashing without destroying the core self, Seth uses an analogy. He warns it's somewhat unpleasant, involving regeneration.
Okay, unpleasant how?
He suggests thinking of the various reincarnated personalities, all the different lives the entity has lived, as the various limbs and other faculties of the entity.
Like arms and legs.
Kind of. It's a functional view. So if one fragment, say, the personality of this lifetime, gets badly damaged or even disintegrated by trauma or suggestion, he compares it to a physical cell being destroyed.
Okay.
The entity, the core self, has the inherent ability to regenerate that faculty, that limb, that personality fragment. It's not permanently lost.
So it's functional, not strictly anatomical. Like one personality might be the entity's right arm, maybe focused on action, getting things done.
While another personality might be the one that will have both feet on the ground, more focused on stability, practicality, maybe emotional grounding.
Each personality serves a purpose, develops certain skills or facets for the entity, but the survival of the whole entity doesn't depend on any single one remaining perfectly intact.
That seems to be the core message.
Yeah.
The real danger, then, isn't the annihilation of the entity, it's the degradation of the current dominant ego manifestation.
So brainwashing or intense negative suggestion, it doesn't destroy the core self, but it forces the current personality to change how it operates in the physical world.
Yes, it can make the current personality look shattered, severely altered in its behavior and expression. But Seth insists the basic personality, that is the primary personality, has not been changed and will not change except through the personality itself.
The change has to come from within the core self. It can't be truly forced from outside.
It's like the difference between, say, forcing someone to wear different clothes and act differently in public, which affects the ego's manifestation, versus actually changing the fundamental person inside, the basic personality. The core chooses its own changes.
But then there's the defense mechanism part. This is where it gets, well, chillingly humorous, as you said.
Yes. When things get really, really bad, when the dominant ego is facing potential collapse, psychological disintegration, the entity apparently has these radical fail-safes.
What kind of fail-safes?
Lesser personality fragments, maybe ones that are more aggressive or less refined, let's say, might suddenly surge forward and take control to protect the main one.
Sacrificial fragments.
In a way.
Yeah.
And this is where the session notes say Jane, as Seth, actually started pounding the table for emphasis. The imagery is intense.
What was the imagery?
Seth described it like this. It is as if the basic personality throws the dirty dogs bone after bone, all the while saving the real morsel.
Wow, okay. Throws the dirty dogs bone after bone.
Yeah. Imagine your core self, your primary personality, is the real morsel being protected. And when the dirty dog's overwhelming trauma, destructive suggestion, whatever it is, come attacking...
But core self doesn't fight directly.
It seems not. Instead, it sacrifices these lesser, perhaps expendable personality, fragments the bones, throws them out to distract or placate the threat, all to save its own integral structure.
That's quite a visual. It's like a calculated, maybe even ruthless act of psychological triage to ensure the core survives.
It really reframes the personality, doesn't it? Not as this single fragile thing, but as this complex, layered defensive system built for survival across lifetimes. You can mess with the ego, you can degrade its current expression, but you can't fundamentally destroy the entity from the outside.
Okay, that idea of malleability, of hidden structures and defenses, it connects really well to the next part, which is about the malleability of reality itself. And the session apparently gave them a live demonstration.
With the time distortion, yeah.
Right. Rob, the recorder, noted how incredibly fast the material was coming through.
Yes, and Seth explicitly confirmed he was doing it deliberately, actively controlling the temporal environment of the session. They got something like 3 dense, closely written pages of really complex stuff.
In how long?
Only 15 to 21 minutes of actual dictated time passed.
That's incredibly fast for that density of information. Yeah. And why did he do it?
His reason was surprisingly practical. He said it was to save you actual practical time that you might wish to use in other matters.
He was literally warping time to be more efficient for them.
Seems like it. He even calls out Jane's physical habit during trance, telling her, "Rupert, you can stop playing Ring Around the Rosie," because she was apparently pacing constantly. He was streamlining everything.
Okay, so if time itself can be bent like that, even for practical reasons, it shows that the temporal laws we take for granted are also just part of the local camouflage, right?
Exactly. They're pliable. And understanding that pliability is key to tackling the next big controversial topic, flying saucers or UFOs.
Yes, the perennial mystery.
Yeah?
What's Seth's take?
Well, he starts with a paradox. He says the strangest thing about them isn't that they exist or appear, but that you can see them.
That you can see them. Why is that the strange part?
Because of how interplane travel works, according to him. As different planes develop their sciences, not just physical tech, but potentially other kinds, their inhabitants learn to travel between these planes.
Okay, moving between different reality systems.
Right. But when they travel, they naturally carry with them the manifestations of their home station.
Their local reality camouflage. They bring their own physics with them, essentially.
That seems to be the implication. And this is where Seth makes a crucial distinction about the specific type of beings allegedly piloting these craft.
It's not all the same.
Apparently not. He says these particular saucers come from a plane that is much more advanced in technological sciences than Earth.
Okay, high-tech.
Very high-tech. But, and this is the critical point, it is not mental science plane, meaning they have incredible engineering skills, they can build these advanced craft, but they lack the conscious understanding and control over the underlying principles, the solidified vitality and the mental enzymes that shape reality.
So they're masters of physical manipulation within their own camouflage system, but they don't understand the fundamental code of reality itself?
Precisely. And because they lack that deeper mental control, their physical craft, which, remember, is made of solidified vitality just like everything else, is fundamentally bound to the camouflage rules of their home plane.
So what happens when that craft, built according to Plane X's rules, tries to enter Earth's plane, which runs on Plane Y's rules?
Massive conflict. System incompatibility. The craft's structure, its vitality pattern, gets caught in what Seth calls a dilemma of form.
A dilemma of form, meaning it's stuck.
It's stuck between two opposing sets of rules. It can't fully transform into Earth's camouflage pattern that would require its current form to basically dissolve and repattern itself according to our rules.
Which it can't consciously control.
Yeah, right. But it also can't fully retain its original pattern because the pressure of Earth's dominant mental enzymes, or local physics, is pushing against it.
So what do we see then, if it's caught between two forms?
We see the result of that battle. A chaotic, unstable, intermediate structure. Seth calls it a bastard form. His analogy is brilliant. It's like seeing something between a horse and a dog and resembles neither.
Okay, that explains, well, pretty much everything about conflicting UFO reports, doesn't it?
It really does. One person sees a disk, the next sees a triangle, someone else sees just a blob of shifting light. The size, the shape, the color, they're all reported inconsistently because the underlying vitality is under immense pressure, literally struggling to hold two incompatible forms at once.
It's not a stable, solid object in our terms at all. It's a temporary reality clash made visible.
Exactly. Which makes the whole scientific quest for, finding a crashed saucer made of stable, exotic metal almost fundamentally misguided, according to this view. You're looking for a fixed object when you're dealing with a temporary, high-pressure state of flux.
And the consequence, then, is that they can't stick around.
Right. Seth says the craft cannot remain long in our environment because the pressure of being caught between these two reality systems is tremendous. They're forced to pop back out, retreat to their native camouflage where their structure is stable.
Wow. Okay. That's a completely different way of looking at the phenomena. Which brings us back to the idea of planes. If beings can travel between them, we need a clearer definition.
Yes, and Seth tackles this directly because he knows we have this ingrained habit, this assumption that a plane must mean a physical place.
Like another planet, another star system, another galaxy?
Right. The default is geographical or cosmic, but Seth argues strongly against that being the only definition.
So a plane isn't always a place.
It can be a planet, he says, but it could also exist where there is no planet. Or it could even involve aspects of what we perceive as apparent time, which implies planes aren't necessarily spatially separate. They could be interwoven with our own reality in ways we don't perceive.
Okay, that's getting abstract. What's the functional definition then?
The functional definition is much more about the conditions than the location. He defines a plane as an isolation of elements.
An isolation of elements.
Or, maybe more poetically, as a climate conducive to the development of unique and particular capacities and achievements.
A climate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like an environment set up for a specific kind of growth or experience.
Exactly. Which leads to the analogy he says is actually the most useful one for us to grasp.
But yeah,
Comparing a plane to an emotional state.
an emotional state, like joy or sorrow.
Precisely. He says that analogy is much more valid than the analogy between a plane and a geographical state. And the reason is simple. Emotional states take up no room.
Okay. You don't have to travel anywhere physically to enter the state of joy or the state of grief or intense focus.
Right. And those states are specific environments, aren't they? They isolate certain feelings, certain perspectives, and they allow for the development of unique capacities or understandings within that state, like experiencing, as he puts it, the state of sorrow and joy almost simultaneously, and gaining a deeper understanding of both because of the contrast.
So when Seth talks about a plane, he's really talking about a specific set of operating parameters, a unique psychological or energetic frequency maybe? That determines what kind of camouflage appears and what kind of growth gets prioritized there.
That seems to be the essence of it. It's a state of being, a focus, more than just a location.
Which actually ties into that weird personal detail from an earlier session, doesn't it? The Frank Watts thing?
Ah, yes. Frank Watts, the personality who showed up briefly in session 2, I think it was, and claimed he came from the state of sorrows.
Right. What was the deal with him? Seth clarifies it here.
He does. He reveals Frank Watts wasn't some random entity. He was actually a makeup personality.
And makeup personality.
A previous manifestation that Seth himself, the larger entity that is Seth, had to adopt specifically to make up for past errors.
So the entity that is now Seth deliberately placed a fragment of itself, Frank Watts, into that specific climate, the state of sorrow, because that environment was necessary for some kind of karmic balancing or learning.
That's exactly how it reads. It highlights how strategically the entity might use these different climates or planes for specific developmental purposes across its personalities.
And then, just to lighten the mood after all that heavy karmic talk, Seth gives his opinion of his former self.
Yes, the character assessment of Frank Watts. He says Frank redeemed me, which is significant, but then adds he has absolutely no sense of humor.
Not at all.
Apparently not. Just this serious, functional personality dedicated to redemption, completely different from the witty, philosophical, sometimes quite funny entity they were currently interacting with. It's a great bit of self-aware, maybe even self-deprecating history from Seth.
It really rounds out the picture. Okay, so the source material for this deep dive, it doesn't actually stop with session 16 itself.
No, the book includes notes from a follow-up trance experiment they did the very next day, January 16th, 1964, and someone else showed up.
Someone new.
Yeah, a personality named Malba Bronson.
Malva Bronson. And she's important. Why?
Because she shifts the focus from the really high-level cosmology back down to very practical, actionable advice. She kind of grounds everything.
Okay, what do we know about her?
She introduces herself, says she died in South Dakota back in 1946 at age 46, and she confirms she's currently inhabiting what she calls a midplane.
A midplane,
Yeah.
implying somewhere between our physical reality and wherever Seth is.
Seems like it. A transitional state, maybe, making it easier for her to communicate. Her tone was apparently quite friendly, even humorous. She joked that Seth would probably call her Malba Toast.
Malba Toast. Okay, so being on this midplane gives her advice some weight, maybe? Like she's actively bridging the gap?
Possibly. And her advice was very targeted towards developing psychic abilities or conducting sessions like the ones Jane and Rob were doing.
What kind of advice?
Really specific guidelines. For beginners, she really stressed needing at least 15 minutes of dedicated relaxation before even attempting a session.
Just chilling out first. Makes sense.
Yeah. And she mentioned the environment, saying either total darkness or a very dim red light will produce the best results. Not necessarily for spooky reasons, but functionally to help shift focus away from the outer senses and turn inward.
Okay, practical setup tips. What else?
Her most valuable advice, I think, was about everyday mental habits. She strongly encouraged using suggestion, especially right before sleep.
Why before sleep?
Because that's when the conscious mind is quieting down, right? That fertile, drowsy, semi-conscious state. She said that's the prime time to actively program your subconscious.
Program it with what?
Good things. Suggesting good health, suggesting success in your work or projects, suggesting the smooth handling of daily practical stuff.
So instead of replaying your worries from the day.
Exactly. Use that liminal space to actively plant positive intentions, positive instructions into your deeper self. She was very clear about the alternative. She warned that worry is incredibly corrosive.
Corrosive how?
It actively reinforces negative attitudes, she said. It basically digs the negative grooves deeper, undermining the very foundation you're trying to build with positive suggestion.
That's really actionable advice for anyone listening. Use that pre-sleep time constructively.
Absolutely. She also confirmed something important for Jane and Rob, the necessity of their partnership. She said the two of them working together was crucial for the work's success. It wasn't just about the medium. The recorder's energy and focus mattered, too.
A collaboration.
Yes. And then she gave this brilliant warning, especially relevant for anyone approaching this kind of psychic development with a very analytical, maybe skeptical mindset. Rob was worrying about checking the data too rigorously, too early on.
Wanting proof before things really got going.
Yeah. And Malba's response was perfect. She used an analogy. You don't rip the head of a flower off the stem to see if it will grow a new blossom.
Wow. Don't dissect it before it's even had a chance to bloom.
Exactly. It's a powerful call for patience. Focus on getting the results first, let the ability flower, then you can start analyzing how it works. Too much scrutiny right at the start can just kill the whole delicate process.
That's great advice for any kind of creative or intuitive development, really.
It really is. She also touched on the ego again, offering some comfort. She acknowledged that the ego often spits like a cat to maintain conscious control when it feels threatened by altered states or psychic input.
The ego gets defensive.
Naturally. But she reassured them that the ego will eventually relax once it learns that the basic personality, the core self, can return to normal consciousness safely whenever it chooses. The ego isn't the enemy, it's just a guard dog that needs to know the house is secure.
That's a helpful perspective. Did she offer any personal validation?
She did. She apparently confirmed some historical details Jane had been getting about a past life in Devonshire, England, but she also cautioned that the ego can sometimes distort this kind of material, especially when it's highly personal or historical, as it tries to process it through its own filters.
So confirmation, but also a note of caution about interpretation.
Right. And she finished by reinforcing the significance of their work with Seth. She called it a lifetime project, explicitly stating it was designed to be published and to inform other people. It wasn't just for their personal development.
Giving them a sense of purpose for all the strangeness they were experiencing.
Exactly. And her final message, woven through her advice, was really one of perseverance. She hinted that initially they might get some help maybe from friends like her on the midplane to produce phenomena like ectoplasm, just to provide encouragement and keep them going.
Like training wheels.
Kind of, but the ultimate goal was always the gradual, steady development of their own intrinsic abilities through consistent practice, trial, and error.
Okay, so we've covered a huge amount of ground here, from session 16 and bulbous follow-up.
We really have. It's dense stuff.
Definitely. Let's try to quickly recap the absolute core takeaways from this deep dive. We started with mental enzymes.
Right, these fundamental, interchangeable forces of creation that dictate how reality appears locally.
And they shape solidified vitality.
The living, chameleon-like material of the universe, which camouflages itself to create the specific rules and appearances of our world.
Then we move to the self. Learning the entity, the core self, is basically indestructible.
Capable of sacrificing lesser personality fragments, those dirty dog's bones, to protect itself from ultimate harm.
And we tackled UFOs, seeing them not as simple alien craft, but as these temporary, unstable bastard forms.
Resulting from technologically advanced but not mentally advanced travelers caught in a dilemma of form between their reality's camouflage and ours.
But maybe the idea that sticks with me the most is the redefinition of a plane.
Yeah, not necessarily a physical place.
But an isolation of elements. A climate may be best compared to an emotional state that, crucially, take up no room.
Which brings us perfectly to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on after this.
Okay, what have you got?
If reality is shaped by the climate you inhabit, and if a plane can be understood as an emotional or psychological climate, then what current emotional climate are you primarily isolating yourself within right now?
Whether it's joy or anxiety or curiosity or frustration.
Exactly. What climate are you creating or choosing to live in? And following Seth's definition, what unique capacities or achievements is that self-imposed climate particularly conducive to developing within you right now? What's it helping you grow or forcing you to confront?
That's a deep one to sit with. What climate am I cultivating? Okay. We really hope this dive has sparked some thoughts. We strongly encourage you to explore this material further if it resonates.
Absolutely.
This deep dive drew heavily from excerpts found in the early sessions, Book 1, and we absolutely must give full credit to the source, the Seth material.
And to the publisher, New Awareness Network, who makes this material available.
If you want to find the early sessions, Book 1, or any of the other Seth books, or just learn more, the place to go is the New Awareness Network website and their bookstore.
That's right. The address is https://sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions. You'll find everything there.
So until our next deep dive into the strange and profound, keep questioning the camouflage around you.
And maybe, pay a little more attention to what your cat seems to be focusing on so intently.
Good advice.
Good night from your old evening star.